feeling like I'm Akademiks.
They talked about at the very beginning.
Okay, that was yesterday. Do I need to do a recap? I'm going to give you guys a recap of yesterday, but we're so late. You know, I told you all what happened. Let's get into what's going on today. So, it started out, and by the way, shout out to Inner City Press once again. So it started out today by saying, when Dr. Hughes, so it looked like there's a doctor going to take the stand today, say, I'm sure Mr. And by the way, chat, thank y'all for allowing me to only do 7 hours yesterday. My voice is much better. I was able to rest my voice, and trust me, if I went 10 hours yesterday, I would have no voice, and you guys wouldn't get a stream. I'm good. And I got some hot shit, pause. I'll be good. He said, when Dr. Hughes is on the stand, I'm sure Mr. Bach could raise that and cross, okay? As report, there's a 10th lawyer that Diddy has now put in play. His name is Jonathan Bach. He's a husband of Alexandra Shapiro, who, if you don't know, Alexandra Shapiro is the appellate lawyer, I keep telling you. And apparently he was the defense for the example in the Trump SPAC trial. Okay. The judge says, what about these texts involving Ventura and buying drugs in Boston? AUSA says, we think these are irrelevant. But if they redacted it, it is not hearsay. If she was in Boston, that she was in Boston and on her own. I think that's why Agnophilia wants it in. Judge says, I'll think on it. AUSA says, we are concerned that Mrs. Porter's death may be used to build sympathy for Combs. So they're saying that Kim Porter's death may be used by the defense to try to paint a picture that would make you sympathetic to Combs and would lead jurors to believe that if he's convicted, his children may, I guess they're saying like he's going to try to be like, oh, I'm the family man. Like, despite you thinking I'm a very bad person here, I'm actually a good person here. And I'm wondering why they're objecting to that, because that's kind of the nature of cases, even if you have a murder or a murderous person or someone who's a killer, or, well, let's say that twice. If you have somebody who has committed armed robberies or a drug dealer, they're going to mention, oh, hey, he gives back to his community. Hey, these amount of people rely on him. He's taking care of these people. So I don't know why they're so opposed for Diddy to try to, introduce, and maybe they're saying just as witnesses, right? Like, wait till at the end of the trial, or I don't know. We'll figure out more. Judge says, I'll think about it. As to Mr. Mescudi, the defense is concerned about hearsay. So this is going to be a big thing and a very important thing. I didn't think that Kid Cudi would be taking a stand at all, but Kid Cudi will be taking a stand, not today, supposedly tomorrow. His testimony is going to try to help the government prove one of the predicate offenses in the RICO. It's arson. There's 7 predicate charges that Diddy has been charged with. 7 predicate offenses, Diddy. Let's see if we could bring it down. Here we go. Where are the predicate offenses at? Okay, the charges, predicate. Let me see. Hold on. Predicate, arson. Where's the arson at? Okay. So I'm gonna have to pull up the last superseding indictment again. But all these are under RICO. So for RICO, you need to prove 2 of these, right? Oh man, it's too much light on my face. Huh? Pause. Okay, so you got to prove 2 of these. Sorry. Oh my God, this is too much fucking light. Yeah, here we go. Sorry. And I know, Chad, I know somebody have said, why don't you just put your fucking computer in dark mode? All right, there we go. Okay, so they got to prove 2 of these. So for a RICO charge, you got to prove at least 2 predicate offenses, and you got to prove a pattern and that people were willingly involved. And yeah, a couple more things, but pretty much that's the main thing. So the sex trafficking is the biggest one. Forced labor also is a pretty big one. And also, which I think kidnapping is the easiest one, because I think the Cassie tape in Intercontinental kind of proves that. It seems like Diddy, through violence, was trying to prevent her from leaving, which would, seemingly suggest kidnapping. Now, granted, you have to make a couple more things to kind of really lock down that kidnapping thing, but that's why they're showing that. Arson is Kid Cudi. Now, I thought they were going to just have Cassie testify to it. I didn't know that Kid Cudi was going to testify to it. But here's the problem about this arson thing. they're going to have some type of police report, have a detective, and maybe somebody who is, working with, the fire department necessarily, that would be able to say, hey, we investigated this and this is arson. The car blew up. It wasn't by like some other natural force or some battery defect or something why the car blew up. And then here's the thing, and this is why hearsay is coming in. How do you know that Diddy did it? Diddy never did it. He didn't do it himself, supposedly. So if you're hearing, or even if you're like, oh, well, he said to us A, B, and C, so you don't really know for a fact that he did it, right? So that's hearsay. So, of course, Diddy got the best lawyers. They're trying to get that hearsay shit out of here. AUSA says Mr. Mescudi will not be testifying today. The judge says, huh? Did I miss that? It says, we emailed at 10:45. And this is a 10:45 email. It says the court is in, is it this? Submarinian. It says the court is in receipt of a letter from the press requesting the email communication from the parties. Okay, never mind. This is some inner city press stuff that is not on the record. No need to take a week to redact that. So basically, inner city press has been pressing the court. This is why this guy is good. Matthew Russell, man, I told you, I owe you some coffee. Me and you, Starbucks. Trust. He's been emailing the judge to say some of these things that are brought up in court, why are they not on the docket? Usually they have the excuse of saying, well, we have to redact them. But they're like, a simple email or shouldn't be redacted. It should be immediately in the docket. So he wrote Judge Submarinian. And by the way, he's the reason why we're getting transcripts a little bit quicker. We're getting exhibits. We're getting pictures of sex workers because they're kind of trying to not put a lot of this stuff out. Inner City Press has been covering the above captioned case, like many others. This morning, before the jury came in, both the government and the defense referred to multiple communications to the court about evidentiary and other issues, but these are not in the public document or PACER. This application letter in motion argues that if many, if not all of these judicial documents, which the public have and the press have a right to access, they should be put in a docket now and going forward in the trial. See, for example, and they reference a couple of things saying letters were docketed overnight in real time. Okay, Slavic this morning referred Judge Stein Menendez trial in both of these letters on such issues went to the docket overnight in real time. So basically they're saying, why are we not seeing these things in the docket? Okay, because they're talking about them in court, right? The judge says, all right, please get the witness, Mr. Gannon, and check on the jury. So welcome back, Mr. Gannon. Now, we got to go back. Mr. Gannon is the agent, if you guys don't know. So let me tweet this out, by the way. We're back in action. Hold on. Let me tweet. Where's the link? Bang. Manny, what's up with you, my boy? I see you. Man, I see all y'all, man. What's wrong with y'all? Manny and King Academics chat, I see you, my boy. Come on. And somebody said how late you are. I'm late today. You're not late. I'm late. Okay? Appreciate you. Okay. So it says, judge says, please get the witness, Mr. Gannon. So Mr. Gannon is the agent that did the search or the raid, or was the lead agent, I would imagine, for the raid that happened, or one of the agents, let's just say that to be safe. One of the agents that was involved in the raid up on the compound of Diddy's 2-star island mansion, okay? So that's where they went in simultaneously and also LA. Now, before we get to that, overnight, right, is pretty normal and typical. All right, bet. That's it. Is there a redirect? There's no redirect, so we're going to get Agent Gannon off of the witness stand. And now the next witness is Dr. Dawn Hughes. AUSA says, what is your profession? Dr. Hughes says, I'm a clinical and forensic psychologist. I treat people who are in World War II, which is such an honor. AUSA says, how many times have you testified in court? Dr. Hughes says, about 60 or 65 in Southern District of New York, in the Eastern District of New York, the Northern District, in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, and VA. By the way, I didn't have people check in. If you're watching right now, I don't care where you're at. If you're on Kick, get up in that chat right now. Rumble, get up in that chat. If you're watching on either YouTube channels or even on Meta, where are you guys from? And you got to rep where you're from, bro. Okay? Anybody here from Virginia, Connecticut, Jersey, Pennsylvania, anywhere in New York, Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, Staten, Bronx, anybody from Milwaukee in here, Cleveland, Ohio, Akron, Vegas in the building, Texas in the building, North Carolina in the building, LA in the building, Louisiana, New Mexico, Nashville, Tennessee, DMV area. What up with y'all, man? San Francisco, East Belgium, St. Petersburg, Florida. You see what happened with Rod Wave? We got to talk about that. Savannah, Georgia, New Mexico, Louisville, Guadalajara, Philly, Columbus, Ohio. We got Philly in the building, man. Definitely. Southside Jamaica, Queens, Rhode Island. I like Rhode Island. My brother went to college there. Where else? South Africa in the building. Albany. Damn. Okay. Arizona. What's up with y'all, man? Shout out to everybody, man. Keep checking it. All right. So the person said they've testified all over the place, right? AUSA says we offer Dr. Hughes as an expert. The defense actually doesn't object. Say, okay, cool. AUSA says, what do you anticipate covering? Dr. Hughes says, why victims stay? Memory. AUSA says, have you been retained by the government? Dr. Hughes says, yes. What is your hourly rate? Dr. Hughes says $600 an hour, but it's $6,000 for a full day in court. So he's getting paid $6,000 per day in court. Now, someone like Dr. Hughes, you would only need him for a full day in court. It wouldn't be like 2 or 3 days. Remember, he's only to give understanding of psychological issues that probably are caused by traumatic situations, right? So AUSA says, hey, we want to know, why do victims stay? And Dr. Hughes says, well, there's psychological bonds and the psychological consequences of the abuse. He says, what are the levels of fear? Dr. Hughes says his ranges from physical violence to butterflies. Violence doesn't have to happen all the time. AUSA says, what is psychological violence? Dr. Hughes says, well, intimidation, throwing things, telling you what you could do and where you could go. The defense says objection. The judge says, hold on, I'm going to strike the last answer, okay? AUSA Mitzi Steiner, that's the one who's doing this direct, says, what can be the role of sexual abuse? Dr. Hughes says it puts the victim in a slightly psychological fear. AUSA says, why does it prevent leaving? Dr. Hughes says, shame, degradation. They don't want to think about it. AUSA says, what's emotional abuse? Dr. Hughes then says, putting down our partner, feeling like a piece of crap. AUSA says, what about financial dependence? Dr. Hughes says, the abuse control housing and transportation, taking away her laptop. Defense says objection. The judge actually sustains it. Steiner says, are you familiar with love bombing? Dr. Hughes says, that's the honeymoon phase. The abuser showers her with gifts and affection to get her back. AUSA says, does the attempt to leave happen over time? Says, yes, it takes multiple attempts. AUSA says, which is the most common coping mechanism? Dr. Hughes says, trying to work it out because of the trauma bonds. You don't want to lose your partner. AUSA says, personal coping mechanisms. How does placating and appeasing usually work? Dr. Hughes says, we're trying to avoid abuse. We're going to continue here. AUSA says, what is minimization? Dr. Hughes then says, the victim says maybe they had a bad day at work. Maybe they were intoxicated. It's a way to stay in the relationship, but it increases their risk. It's not a long-term strategy. It gets from one assaultive episodes to the next. AUSA says, what about the power relation? The doctor says, a person could have power as a principal of school. The victim asks, who's going to believe me? Right? AUSA says, when does the victim finally speak? Dr. Hughes says, in a safe environment, or usually after psychological help. AUSA says, what type of language do victims use when they first speak of it? Dr. Hughes says they usually minimize it. They are piecemeal. They remember the chipping paint on the ceiling, the smell of alcohol on the perpetrator's breath. Sidebar, and there's a sidebar and cross-examination that's going to happen. It will be by Jonathan Bach, who's Alexandra Shapiro's husband, as we said, who was brought on to be Combs' 10th attorney. Bach says, your clients, you observe them closely. Their cognitive style? Hughes says, yes. Bach says, people don't fit in the boxes, right? Dr. Hughes says, they're categories. Bach says, but you have to listen to particular individuals, right? Dr. Hughes says, I'm not divorced from my training. Okay. All right, we're waiting for some more messages. Okay. Oh man, Polished Power on Kick. He got the jokes. He said, "Act, you need to update your profile picture. Look like this act ate the last act." Holy, holy. All right. Okay. All right. So we're getting somewhere here. Fat Joe and Jadakiss call out Charlemagne. Oh shit. F- Joe and Jada trying to get some headlines out here. We'll see what happens. Okay. All right. Let's see.
Hey everybody, I'm Lisa Evers, Fox 5 News reporter. I'm here outside federal.
So what's starting to happen now, chat, is like defense attorneys are like, they've gotten a pretty decent look into what this case is shaping up to be. Still pretty early. Remember, they're going to bring a lot of witnesses that might be experts, witnesses that might be, for example, we have a doctor on who's like a clinical psychiatrist, right? Or psychologist. They're going to bring in people who are weapons experts. They're going to bring in people who are, drug experts. They're going to bring in a lot of people to kind of really crystallize this idea that Diddy may have, and they haven't really alleged that necessarily, even though it's kind of baked in the cake. They're going to try to put it where Diddy had drugs, and these illicit drugs that maybe he was forcing people to take, or creating an environment where they couldn't say no and people were getting drugged and they were not on their own will. And they're going to have a lot of experts that kind of go into these type of things, but they're also going to have these behavioral experts to try to crystallize it in the minds of the jurors that what you're seeing is just not freaky people. You're seeing people who, once they fall into the cycle, like it's impossible to like get out, right?
Court, because we're getting a lot of questions, and we had to turn to one of the top lawyers in the New York City area who's actually done cases in these courtrooms and find out what everybody wants to know. Joining me right now is criminal defense attorney and managing partner of Hamilton Clark, Philip Hamilton. Phil, great to have you with us.
Always great to be with you, Lisa.
Thank you so much. One of the big questions I keep getting asked everywhere I am is, can Diddy go free?
Why they say this nigga look like Arthur, bro?
How do you answer that?
Anything is possible.
By the way, there's uneven sound coming from these mics, so like it's actually it's not fully balanced on stereo, so that's why you're gonna hear one ear if you're listening on your headphone. One ear is louder than the other, so apologize for that.
Diddy could potentially go free, but if he's going to go free, the defense is going to have to continue to hammer upon the fact that this case.
I want to stop here, and I'm bringing up kind of an unrelated point, because I've seen this conversation. There's much more conversation happening of people thinking, can Diddy beat this shit, right? I think people are watching to be like, wait, that's all y'all got on this nigga? Like, I thought y'all had a little bit more. What's starting to happen as people try to, question, is Diddy going to beat it? There is also another fear of some of the people who were speaking out at first. They're almost starting to retreat back into their rat holes, because they're like, well, if Diddy beats this, he might be more powerful than ever. I actually disagree. I think he could beat it, but I don't think he'll ever get to that level of power again. There's going to be so much civil suits that fly, because what happened was a lot of this shit was kept undercover, literally, and none of this stuff came out. So also people thought it was going to be a believability issue. Also, he really had profound and tremendous impact and influence over the music industry. And people looked at him as, oh, if I get with Diddy, I could elevate my career. He was also big in the wine and spirits business. I think when Diddy comes out, if he comes out of this, without having to serve some significant jail time, or he comes out as not guilty, I don't think Diddy will have that much amount of power. I don't think so at all. I think Diddy will have his millions, but he's going to probably spend the rest of his life fighting civil cases. Everybody, you're going to probably even see more people who probably didn't say nothing before now, and people with a name come out and sue him, because then they're going to hit him up and say, we know you, dog, we know you done paid out a couple people. Give us our payout or we suing too. So I think no matter what happens, Diddy's influence and power will never return to what it used to be, or it definitely won't increase. And not only that, I think he's going to probably spend the rest of his life fighting civil lawsuits where I think people are just gonna come after him and come after him and come after him. It's gonna be hell, if you ask me. So for the people who thinks this turns Diddy into Thanos, no, I think this actually turns him into someone who probably for the first time in his life, if he does beat this, he's gonna escape the media eye. He might go to Bali, okay? Because at least, listen, who knows if Russell Simmons is doing freak offs over there? We don't know. He probably is, but them chicks don't even speak English. You get what I'm saying? If Diddy comes out, he can't keep doing freak offs in the United States. You know what I mean? Like, he just can't keep doing it. And that's his thing. He going to either have to go to Colombia or he got to go to Bali.
Was, but are they saying that I also was forced into doing something that I didn't want to do, or I was coerced into attending one of these parties, one of these freak-offs, and doing something I didn't want to do? I'm gonna have to hear how that plays out. As surface level as that sounds, as I say it, I'm gonna have to hear how it plays out, and then as we can continue to have discussions about how's the case looking, I can give more analysis on that end. But that's what I'm looking to hear as we kind of move forward from today.
No, definitely, and a lot to keep our eye on. And in fact, yesterday the former personal assistant read off automatically like about half a dozen women's names, and he said these were women that he was involved in. So do you think we may see them take the stand, other women?
We shall see, but to the extent that they do, to the extent that they are either being...
Okay, by the way, someone just gave
Next
me
up on the stand.
a tip. Pause. No, anyway. All right, we have some more tweets, or we should. Okay. So Sabak is now questioning Dr. Hughes, right? And he says, hey, when you do forensic work, you had a lot of sources of information, right? Hughes says, right. If it's relevant. Bach says, you look at police reports, witness reports, and the like, correct? She says, correct. She says, you're familiar with malignerin? Or malignerin? No, it's malignerin, right? Hughes says, I am. Bach says people could fabricate emotional responses, correct? Hughes says they can. The judge says, Mr. Bach, we should break here. And Bach says, I don't have a good cliffhanger. And the judge says, break. Okay, so they go on break. All right. So they said, but wait, during the break, they bring in George Kaplan to invoke his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. Judge says, welcome. AUSA says, did you receive a subpoena? Kaplan says, yes. AUSA says, do you intend to not answer on the Fifth Amendment grounds? Kaplan says, yes. Who's Kaplan? George Kaplan. We're going to have to Google that. Comey says, Your Honor, please sign the immunity order. Oh, shit. They just gave somebody immunity. So has he read it? No. The judge says, read it first. Comey says, the attorney says he read it. Judge says, I will sign the immunity order. The government will seek to admit GX69A. They're now breaking. Who's George Kaplan? Wow. Let's see. George Kaplan. Who's that? Let's do George Kaplan Diddy. Who's George Kaplan? Let's just Google it. Does anyone know who George Kaplan is? Oh, he was once the assistant. Oh, okay. Gannon is said to be followed by Dr. Dawn Hughes, a sexual trauma psychologist who previously testified at R. Kelly's sex trial and also at the Harvey Weinstein trial. And George Kaplan, who once was Diddy's assistant. So all the assistants are coming out. I didn't know Diddy had this many assistants or former assistants. By the way, we haven't heard Mia yet, and somebody says Mia has some really good testimony. It's a rapper, Kid Cudi, is also going to take the stand this week. Wow. So George Kaplan is going to take the stand. All right. They're in a break right now. I don't.
Types of traumatic stress go into that, and that a lot of victims actually experience shame when it comes to sexual abuse.
Cringetown on Kick says, man, Cassie's so damn fine. How could you let niggas piss on her?
She touched base on him.
Yo, I have like a theory. First of all, I have two theories. I think Diddy went through some. I'm not excusing him, but I do think he went through some severe childhood traumatic sexual trauma. I think he has a really interesting relationship with sex or sexuality. Also, his respect for someone he loves, I don't think is normal, like how men, like, you know, we're usually protectors and providers, but even in the sexual situations or like when it comes to sexuality, we're territorial, and he's territorial too, but also I think he loves the idea of power more than the person. So I think he has some sexual trauma that is probably from his childhood. I don't know if we'll get into that because he's basically saying I'm kinky. I didn't do this shit though, right? So we're not going to get into that. But I do think we might call him sick, and some of the shit we're hearing is sick. But I do think it stems from some shit in his childhood. Maybe he was touch fondled, somebody fucked him. Who knows? I do also think that this idea that he was suppressing these homoerotic urges, it's becoming louder and louder. Like, this guy clearly was interested in men. It's very clear. Now, if you want to call him bisexual, you can, but he's either bi or homosexual. There's definitely no hetero to Diddy, okay? And it's very clear, like, maybe it was the pressure of the music business. We see with these guys when they get to be that age, obviously they spend half their lives like lying, right? When people like Mr. C, supposedly he went through a lot when he got outed. These days, like, if someone's gay and they're younger, like, they just come out and it's just like, all right, whatever. But these guys spent an entire lifetime, especially if they were popping in the 90s, building up an image, concealing shit, doing shit under the darkness or the cover of, whatever they had to do to make sure people didn't find out. And then when homosexuality became way more acceptable in hip hop, number one, I think for legacy wise, they still didn't want to come out. Like, so they still continued living how they used to. But it's very clear a lot of niggas in the 90s was gay as shit. Okay? That's what it is.
Emotional abuse as well too, and she had said when we battled.
Now, if you ask me, I think all of them were gay. I think Diddy was gay, Mr. C was gay, and Diddy, Biggie, and Mr. C all gay. If you ask me, remember, Mr. C was Biggie's DJ. Bruh, the gay niggas flock together, bro. Come on, man. All right. Diddy, Mr. C was gay. He likes transgenders. God rest his soul. Biggie had the most sussest bars in history. Like, if there's no liquor you could drink that you think of these gay-ass bars. And then Diddy seemed to have a homoerotic fetish with watching men have sex, not necessarily with a woman, but he liked watching men ejaculate. And then he pleasured himself with their semen. That's fucking gay. Fucking gay. So I think all three of them was gay. I'm starting to think all them niggas that bad boy was gay. We got to go on a case-by-case basis. It might be a thing where they got to prove they're not gay. But them three niggas was gay.
Or excuse me.
And by the way, here's the thing too. Yeah, I'm speculating here to a certain extent. Is Biggie less of a greater artist if he's gay? No, I think we live in a different age. We just don't give a fuck. Right? We don't care. But I think some of these guys, especially like, obviously I know some people are going to be like, well, Biggie died, we shouldn't talk about it, blah, blah. His legacy, he goes down as a straight man in his legacy, right? And I think that's what a lot of these guys, they feel like their legacy will be tarnished if they ever came out. And they probably lived their lives. Obviously, Biggie died at a young age. But they lived their lives in the limelight as being straight men. But most of these guys, they just like penis, man.
When we belittle and demean and put down our partner, that kind of falls into emotional abuse. If you can't talk about what's happening, how can you necessarily get help? She talked about financial kind of constraints as far as why victims may not leave because of financial reasons.
Yeah, I read the chat. What you mean I only rant?
Yep. And then she had said that you need tangible reasons.
Yeah, somebody in the kick chat, they just want attention. Hey, does this guy read the chat?
To leave. So how do you leave if you don't have tangible resources? And so that was kind of the basis, because there were a lot of objections today, Jesse.
Oh, I'm sure.
Despite the defense saying that they weren't going to have a bunch of objections. But one of the cool things I would say about the cross-examination is that we got to see Jonathan Bach actually kind of in action for the first time. He's one of Diddy's newest attorneys. I think he makes attorney number 9. And so I was kind of
Jonathan Bach. Let's look at him for a second. Jonathan Bach. So this is a attorney. Let me see. Is it Jonathan Bach? Yeah, he's a lead trial. I think this is him. Was he involved? Was he involved in an Amber Heard case at all? Because it would make sense. Well, apparently, he works at Shapiro. Oh, he's married to... Who is he married to? I'm pretty sure he's been studying that Amber Heard case because it looks like he only came on to deal with any mental or psychological doctors who might get up on a stand for the government to say, no, these people weren't willing participants. They were they were drugged, or they were under this cycle of abuse, or they were being forced and coerced. And this guy's job is to make sure that he debunks that and gives enough doubt to kind of let the jury know these people wanted to do that shit.
Wondering during the cross-examination, because we did get to that before the lunch break, but whether or not these jurors were kind of like, who is this guy and why is he showing up on day 8 of trial? And so I was kind of curious what was going through their mind on seeing this new face today.
Hopefully they're not reading the news and trying to figure out what's going on. Listen, Elizabeth, I know you have to jump back in court. Thank you so much. We'll catch you later. Appreciate it.
Yes. Thanks, Jesse.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're getting to your questions online. Submit them on YouTube. I have a panel of great guests. I'm going to break down every...
Okay. So we're going to get some other people who are in court, their perspective of everything. We had Lauren Conlin, my new friend. She hasn't updated yet. Maybe Logic has done it. Yeah, they just walked out of court like just now. So usually what happens, they come out of court and on their lunch break, they'll give a quick, 29 seconds ago. Damn, called it.
Clinical psychologist Dr. Dawn Hughes took the stand this morning on day 8 of the Diddy trial in an effort by the state to try and explain to the jury some of the conflicting testimony that they may have perceived from Cassie Ventura. And Cassie is one of the state's alleged sex trafficking victims, courtesy of defendant Sean Puffy Combs, and her testimony was designed to help the jury better understand why it is that she seems to express so much love for Diddy while purportedly being coerced into behavior against her will. I'm Joe Neerman, aka Good Logic. I'm an attorney down in the courtroom. I'm covering this trial every single day. If you want more attorney perspectives as to how this trial is proceeding, I urge you to please make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit the bell so you get all notifications as I drop 2 videos a day, in addition to doing a live stream at night where I go into much greater detail as to what we saw earlier that day. Now, Dr. Hughes came up and said that she wanted to address 4 different areas as to how trauma victims will react to that trauma, and specifically addressing why someone who's a victim and a long-term victim of domestic violence would stay in that abusive relationship, as well as how they cope with that abuse, how they end up expressing it and disclosing it, and how it affects their memory. And the objective here, again, was to try and help the jury better understand what's going on. She's in this abusive relationship, according to her testimony, on and off for 11 years and keeps going back. As Dr. Hughes explained, and beneficial from the state's perspective, ended up using language that Cassie herself used during her testimony when she was giving, when Dr. Hughes was expressing how a typical long-term sufferer of domestic violence will tend to act. Now, Dr. Hughes never conducted any interviews of Cassie, never spoke with her. She's what they call a blind expert, in that she looks at different reports and tries to gather what she sees going on in the news about the story, much like any of you may be following what's going on in the news, and tries to get an overall picture. But this is not Cassie's specific psychologist. She's never sat down and met with Cassie at all. She's talking in general as an expert who understands how a typical domestic violence suffer.
Okay, so it looks like she's just looked at reports, but she's never interviewed Cassie. Obviously, though, here's the thing, though. She has she's been paid by the government. And this is the thing about these expert witnesses, right? You're getting $6,000 by the government. They kind of want you to go up there and kind of say what they want you to say. Now, here's the thing. You can't go up there and lie because it's going to fuck up your credibility. And also, if it goes against other things you've said publicly, that could fuck up your credibility and you won't get paid anyway, right? At least in the long term. But you got to imagine if this person's paid $6,000. And this is the thing. Usually when it comes to trials, people go expert for expert. And this is why, like, back in even the Tory Lanez case, people thought Tory, him and his attorneys try to cut corners because, for example, they did the analyzation of the DNA. Tory didn't do an analysis. Like, usually you want to get your own second hand, you want to you have your people look at the evidence as well. If you're paying them, they might look at it more favorable for you. Remember in the Tory case, the government came back and said, it was in the discovery that they gave Tory, they said, the DNA test is inconclusive, right? And that's the DNA test about fingerprints on a gun. Or not fingerprint, the DNA test from the gun. And it was inconclusive. Now, Tory took that to be favorable, so they didn't get their own witness, or not witness, but expert. By the way, that came back to haunt Tory because the government is actually now saying in post, yo, you had a chance to get your own expert. You didn't. You saw what our expert was going to say. And then when it didn't go your way, now you want to get your expert who says something more favorable in your sense, saying it wasn't found, right? So again, when we hear these experts, or like even like in this case, a clinical psychologist or a psychiatrist, we're going to have to expect that, on defense, that, Diddy, he's no stone is going unturned. He's sparing no expense. He's a billionaire and he's down to use all $1 billion to get up on out of this, which he should. This is his life on the line. He's gonna make sure everything is done, which means he's gonna have a counter for this doctor. He's gonna have to have his own doctor that probably speaks to depression, substance abuse, couples in substance abuse, and who are together, toxic relationships, and also maybe even trying to flip it on his head by saying Diddy was himself in some type of relationship that was maybe not abused by Cassie, but one that was cyclical and he had no control of either. So we're probably gonna see that for the defense. By the way, I seen some people did say, no cross on, because the defense has tried to, they're playing chess with the government. The only person they had, every time I see the chat, I'm like, am I muted? Y'all got me paranoid now. The only time they didn't cross analyze, or actually cross interview a witness on the stand was Cassie's mom. So they didn't cross-examine. I'm sorry. Got the word right now. They didn't cross-examine Cassie's mom. And that's the only person. Some people felt like, why didn't you do that? Well, I think other people have kind of answered that question. You don't want to attack the mother of the supposed victim, right? The mother of the supposed victim probably don't have much to either say or add other than what her daughter told her. And you want to keep it focused on what the daughter said. Now, granted, they could have did the cross on the mom and kind of try to flush out this whole 20,000 thing, but they chose to not. And, that's going to be an interesting decision, but I don't think it's going to be a big decision, right? The parents didn't bring too much to the table other than they introduced exhibits that apparently the parent took pictures of her being bruised up, took pictures about her being bruised up, and those bruises were supposedly from the hands of Diddy. Let me keep playing.
Would react to that.
By the way, Sam Glover, thinking about 5 Canadian. He says, Myron won't shut up about black women and people like it's their fault his people are living in shanty towns and why he fled his failed homeland. Wait, how did you just bring up Myron? What's going on? Is it what happened? By the way, Brown Skin Dragon. That's the Brown Skin Dragon. Yeah, I say the name right. What's up, girl? See you in the chat. She's from the UK. She came to the UK show I did. Shout out to her. Why are you talking about Myron? What happened with Myron? Okay, cool. Let me keep playing a little bit of that. By the way, you guys hit the like button if you're watching on YouTube. Please, we have 13,000 people over at the King Akademiks channel, but we only have 1,000 likes. Come on, we got to get that to at least like 3,000 to 4,000. Come on, please.
Trauma, and she said that, and she expressed in exceeding detail exactly why it is that someone would stay in that abusive relationship, how they're looking to recapture what they saw in the past, different methods that they use to try and cope and deal with that abuse, and the justifications that they use. She talked about minimization, how the victim will usually often not disclose it with anyone for a myriad of reasons, such as shame or embarrassment, fear of not being believed.
By the way, Luigi, thank you for the 5 gifted to the King Academics page. Appreciate you, bro.
And she talked about that how the abuser tends to act in these relationships, and a lot of it seemed very consistent with testimony that we heard from Cassie. She talked about using financial power in order to try and keep that person feel physically under your control. He talked about how they may threaten and engage in emotional abuse, try and make the person feel lesser than, try and make them feel, strip them of their independence by making them feel that they need this other person, both financially and also to try and reclaim the respect and admiration that they got during the honeymoon phase of the relationship. And that there's a continual effort to try and get...
315 Cheeto says, do I think Busta Rhymes is gay? I don't think Busta gay. Somebody says Cash Money gay? I mean, I don't know, man. I just remember that one clip. I think we all know that one clip. Y'all ever seen this? You ever seen this clip? That one clip with Birdman when he say, "Yo, when they're like, yo, we need some bitches on the stage." They trying to do shake that ass. What's them the song? Back that ass up. They say, nah, we need some bitches on the stage. Yo, where the girls at? Yo, come over here. So all the Cash Money niggas is like, yo, Juvenile BG. They're like, yo, bring her. Yo, this thing of Birdman looked around and said, yo, where my niggas at? Bring some niggas up here. I'm like, yo, that was wild. Y'all remember that? Birdman. More niggas to the stage. Y'all know what I'm talking about. If y'all know what I'm talking about, y'all know what I'm talking about, bro. There's that one clip. He said, I need some niggas. I need on stage. It was on stage. Y'all remember that? Y'all remember that shit? Hold on. I'm going to show you the clip. It's like back in the day. If y'all know what the clip is, tell me and I'll search it up. Y'all remember that? Hold on. It was a twerk contest. Yeah, here we go.
I need a fire high girl to come up here and twerks up. Here, look, I'm going to show you what type of nigga I am, right?
Yo, once he said I'm going to show you what type of nigga I am.
These niggas right here been bucking with me all night. I want y'all to come up here.
Nah, that was wild. Nah, that was wild, chat. Look. Here we go.
4 hour show, right?
Yeah.
I need a fire high girl to come up here and twerks up. Bag that motherfucker up. What's up?
Who ready to back that ass up?
Who gonna come back that ass up? What's up? Where the hot girls at? Where little project at? I'm looking for, come on. Come your ass up here. When we work, what's up? You wanna come? Come on, yeah, come on.
They trying to get the hot girls out there.
When we working with, it's cool.
Look.
Ain't no thing.
You
look.
Real stupid.
I need a project, bitch. A hood rat bitch. One that don't give a fuck and say she took that Let him up here.
Motherfucker throwing clothes up here and shit.
Yeah, Mr. Security.
Look, see, everybody's trying to get the girls up there. Look at this.
I'm going to show you what type of nigga I am, right? These niggas right here been bucking with me all night. I want y'all to come up here and fuck with me.
Yo, this is a twerk contest. Birdman said, bring these niggas up right there.
Come on, let them niggas up here.
Y'all 3, y'all 4, right? Yeah, all y'all come up here and fuck with a nigga. It's cool like that. You heard me? What's up? Trevor, what's wrong with her?
Come on, you wanna come up here?
Fuck that. What
You wanna come up here?
You hear that? What was that, Wayne? Said, fuck that. What the hot girls? Is it niggas? Wait, hold up. Niggas. Where the hot girls at, man?
Shake it. Come on, get up right here. Ducky, get up right there.
It's cool. I can take two of y'all.
Get up right there.
You and you. Come on, yeah.
The whole time Juvenile, I need that bitch. Yo, the whole time Birdman said, I need bro right there.
Come on,
Y'all bullshit.
Black, get them up here. They been bucking with a
at
nigga
the
all
little rat.
night. I fuck with
ugly
niggas
bitch.
too.
Oh, no. Nigga said, I fuck with niggas too.
Get up right there.
You and you. Come on, yeah. Come on.
Y'all bullshit.
Black, get them up here. They been bucking with a
at the
nigga
little
all
rat.
night.
She look good.
I fuck with
ugly
niggas
bitch.
too. What's up?
Don't fuck with me.
We made a couple of
There's another funny part when like they realize they're like, why so many niggas on the stage? This ain't Cash Money.
All right, I'm gonna pay you $20 to beat this bitch up right there.
We need a couple.
I need dude right there. Like this was crazy.
Him right there.
I need somebody
Nah,
to
these were the thoughts.
take back to the hotel.
Don't fuck with me. I'll make the
All
whole
right, I
crowd
want
whip your
dude
ass.
right there.
Who won't make some money? Which one of these women won't make some money?
Yeah, that's cool. That's it. I need one more. Him too. Yeah, him
I want
too.
y'all to beat this hoe up for
Him
me.
too. That's it. That's it. And my dude right there, dog. Say, Ducky, and dude right there with the blue hat on.
Wait, man, we need some more chicks up here. What the fuck is going on?
Yo, they start realizing there's mad niggas on stage now. Yo, man, he say, yo, bro, what the fuck? Yo, we need some more girl. What the fuck is?
Right there, dog. Say, Ducky, and dude right there with the blue hat on.
Wait, man, we need some more chicks up here. What the fuck is going on? Say, man,
What's that, Warden?
we need some more chicks, man.
Man, watch that.
So we need some more girls, bro. This is, the ratio's fucked up, man. Nah, she got a little fatty. This when cameramen were really good. This is like the good cameraman.
We need some more girls, man. What is y'all doing, man?
They coming, cousin. They coming.
So what y'all doing? Yo, the niggas got up there and started throwing up gang signs.
What it at?
Yo, another nigga just hopped on stage. It's a tour contest.
What's up, Lamar?
I ain't picking
What a
shit.
What they
fucking
at?
hot girl.
Yo, chat, I need this for the soundboard. I fuck with niggas too.
I need somebody to take that.
Don't fuck with me.
Come up
Y'all
here.
bullshit.
Black, get them up here. They been bucking with a
at the
nigga
little
all
rat.
night. I fuck
Little
with
ugly
niggas
bitch.
too. What's up?
All right, Juvenile, explain the rules.
Look, if any one of these women standing on this stage don't know how to back that ass up, where they gotta go? They gotta get up out of here, cousin. Damn, they was throwing money up here and shit. Damn.
What they think I ain't gonna take they shit? I'm gonna
They
follow
should.
all that shit up and put it in
And
my
look.
pocket.
They want get
Hold on, get your roll on.
driving like it's high, driving like it's high, driving like it's high, driving like it's high. What you working with, or what you working?
We gonna poll call. She cool.
She super shook.
Your boy said that's his old lady.
Contestant number 2.
Turn it around, baby. Let me see what you're working.
I think Birdman back there macking with the dudes.
Say what? Or what you working with?
No.
Hell no.
Oh shit. Anyway.
Back to that honeymoon phase and a hope that if they can try to find a way to manage the situation, that they will succeed in coming back to the good periods, the good times. But that throughout the time, part of their coping methods is that they act like someone who has PTSD and they're walking on eggshells. So much of the testimony was very consistent with language that Cassie was using. For example, she talked about how they get stripped of their agency, of their ability to feel independence. And one of the things that we heard Cassie talk about when she was asked whether she would trade the money to have not lived through these experiences, the language that Cassie used is, "I would give anything back to get back my agency," which when she said it, I thought was an unusual choice of words. But in the context of the fact that she has received a great deal of therapy to try and cope with the impact of her purportedly extended abuse at the hands of Diddy, you can understand why that's a language that would come back to her, that she's been trying to reclaim her agency. Dr. Hughes went on to explain how they will frequently go back to the abuse, and that the effort in going back is that they feel that it's not working, that if they try to get away, that they never can get away, that it's an impossible situation to get free of. And that is consistent with Cassie's language, that she said, how do you get out of a situation like this? How do you do that? She talked about how there will frequently be gaps in memory, that when the person is trying to recall it, there may be certain things that will be very vivid, and central parts of the story will be there, but that often they might focus on one particular thing, either because they're trying to become dissociative and they're trying to just zone out on something, and that could be something that's intentionally that they're doing, and they'll just remember what color the drapes were and how they were fluttering in the midst of being abused, because it's their way of leaving their body and dissociating. And when she talked about dissociating, you would think that the jury would likely call back to when Cassie frequently testified how that she would take drugs to try and become dissociative, to try and not actually be in her body while she was going through those freak-offs that she purportedly went through hundreds of times. So the tracking of language between Cassie's testimony and the typical domestic violence victim, that tracking of language seemed to run throughout the testimony, and it didn't seem that she actually even watched the trial. It seemed as if that everything that Cassie had been saying seems almost textbook from what Dr. Hughes has experienced. She's a 30-year board-certified clinical psychologist, and you'd have to think that she made significant strides in the state's effort to try and help the jury better understand why it is that she still seems to be expressing love. As Dr. Hughes explained, she said years after they leave, they frequently will still have a sense of love, and she talked about a trauma bond being that through the course of going through that trauma, and their efforts to cope with it and to try and recover that honeymoon phase will make them feel in certain ways a stronger sense of love than other people in a healthier relationship. So all of this is designed to convey to the jury that the testimony that they heard from Cassie, which may have sounded conflicting and confusing to many of us as to why she's doing what she's doing, why would you keep going back, and that might have led to questions about her credibility. The state was certainly trying to lay that to rest by showing how, from everything Dr. Hughes was testifying, that seems consistent with a classic long-term sufferer of domestic violence. Now, we had just begun cross-examination when we broke for lunch, and I certainly plan on reporting back to you in the afternoon session what dents that.
Okay, cool. My friend here, she's popped in.
Hi everyone, it's lunchtime and it's day 8 of the U.S. versus Sean Combs, and just bear with me, it's a little bit chilly out. So we finished off with the direct examination of the HSI Special Agent Gerard Gannon. And Gerard Gannon, yesterday when we left off, he was going through all of the evidence that he found, the photos that he took, and we saw the 2 AR-15s, and remember, they were separated. The upper barrel was not with the lower barrel, and the magazines were separated. However, the guns were loaded. Well, when we started off this morning, we were shown 12 to 13 pairs of 7-inch platform heels, and specifically these red platform heels. And it was wild to see a special agent show us these platform red heels on the stand. We also saw Balenciaga boots that had 3 different cell phones in them. There was a 4th cell phone found in a bedroom, and then there was a Gucci bag found on a dresser with a $100 bill rolled up, lots of different pills, powder, rocks, eye drops, and these pills, they were pink, yellow, orange, white, and they were later tested, and they were found to be coke, ketamine, and actually the eye drops, there was MDMA residue on these eye drops. There were also 3 orange tablets with a Tesla symbol on them. That was kind of odd. And then there was Xanax. And then we got to the bathroom, and in the bathroom there was this wooden box that had the word puffy inscribed in the top on this gold plaque. And in that box...
By the way, am I muted? No. Oh my God. I can't even see my mute button. Let me move this. Oh, by the way, chat, she appreciates, she says you guys been showing her some love. So she is sending, she's saying hey to the chat, man. She fucks with y'all, okay?
Box, there was mushroom pills and a bag of crystal rocks, which they later tested, and that turned out to be MDMA. Then we went to the closet in the bathroom, and we saw 25 bottles of baby oil and 31 bottles of Astroglide. And in that same container, I saw 2 rubber duckies. I was like, oh, okay, that's also something. And then they made sure to say, you know, Special Agent Gannon.
They were putting the rubber duckies up Diddy's ass. I think y'all know what type of time he on.
Was that all the baby oil you found in the Miami home? And he said, no, it wasn't, because we saw these mini crates of it yesterday. We also went to the guest house where they showed us a red suitcase with a .45 caliber handgun that was not defaced. And then there was bullets and the magazine separate from that. They said the box of bullets, there was, the box originally came with 50 bullets, and there was only 41 bullets found in that box. And all
very stupid thing. A lot of times those type of even that brand of ammo, you could, when I go to the range, and even though, by the way, usually you don't use hollow point bullets for range ammo, that's usually for self-defense ammo. However, people, you know, Diddy's a billionaire. Maybe he wants to practice with more expensive bullets. Who cares? But usually when people go to a range, they'll bring their own ammo, or they'll bring ammo back that they didn't finish at the range. So, you know, I don't know if they were trying to like insinuate like maybe Diddy shot somebody, right? Because like, oh, there were 7 bullets missing. No, that's kind of how it is. Like I probably got like 4,000 ammunition up in here. You know what I mean? Just off me kind of ordering bullets for every single gun and every different type of gun.
Also, when he got the handgun, instead of displaying it on the witness stand like he had done with the other evidence, he was actually asked by the prosecutor to walk it up and down the jury to get a closer look. So I just wanted to point that out. And then when he was cross-examined by Tenny Garagos, she revealed that HSI had been looking into Sean Combs.
I ain't gonna lie to you. It's these glasses. These glasses work for her. She kind of look a little, you know, she look a little bad right here with the glasses. The glasses. You know what it is? I think it gives off the little smart, sophisticated look. That's what it is. We're tired of ratchet bitches. That's what it is. We're tired of ratchet, and the glasses is giving off soft girl era fucking, well, actually, what I use that word soft girl era. Ain't that for bitches who want to get tricked on? All right, fuck that. No, it gives off sophisticated, docile, and intelligent.
The HSI investigation into Combs actually started on November 17th, 2023. And so what she did was when she went through her cross-examination, she kind of reiterated some of the facts that we heard in direct. So she said things like, so there was a total of 80 to 90 agents that, you know, that did this search, kind of hinting that that's a very excessive amount. And then she said, and, you know, you found 6 people on the property that were, one was a music producer, and essentially everybody else was employees. Like,
I wonder, was it Stevie J? Who was the music producer, or was that Lil Rod? Did they identify the 6 people?
You know, I think one person was the house manager, and then the others were cleaning staff. And she said, so you handcuffed all those
acting in soft era, soft girl era
people for an hour? And he's like, well, it wasn't necessarily an hour.
It's an accent. It's given. I didn't say that.
But there was one person who wasn't too happy.
Yo, Randall Jackson, yo, focus. Okay, focus. It's not worthy of the Dr. Umar lashes. Come on, man. We practicing Pan-Africanism. You know what I mean? My Jamaican flag in the background, man. Listen, there's a tariff for all white women right now. We cannot break the moratorium, okay?
Happy that wasn't cooperating, so we kept them in cuffs longer. And then she was like, he wasn't happy because he was in handcuffs. And then, you know, she said, and you found nothing on those people, no drugs, no weapons. He said no. And she also kind of made the point, like, you know, you had all these cars there and you actually had a boat come in. And he's like, yes. And she said, so you know, did this search and seizure, by land and by sea. Just really hinting at the fact that maybe they overdid it, or that's what I took from her tone and her cross. She also talked about the AR-15s, made it very clear that when the jury was shown these AR-15s, they were in one piece, and that at the Miami home, they were not in one piece. They were separated, and they were actually found in separate places. You know, the top of the closet, the bottom, or so we think, because she elicited testimony from him saying that they didn't take a lot of before pictures of the evidence, mainly after pictures. And she also, you know, kind of stressed that, like you said, like this is your job to take photos, and you should take these photos as close to the location of where you found this evidence as possible. And he said, yeah. And then, you know, she pointed to this photo we saw of all these shoes and I don't remember. Oh, it was the the lower barrels of the AR-15s. Yes. And they were kind of scattered on the floor. And she kind of was like, you know, well, we don't know where these were found exactly because we don't have photos. And, you know, she pointed to another photo of Diddy's bedroom where the pillows were kind of messed up on a couch. And she said, so there's no before here. And then she showed us a photo of the gates, the opening gates to the house that were kind of pushed through by the CERT team. And you know, the special agent testified that that's how they had to get through to the house. They had to push through these gates, and one of the gates was very severely damaged. So, you know, she's like, so you didn't take a picture of the gate before, just after. She was just really kind of, you know, hammering him. And then I think the last thing she said was something along the lines of, you know, so a lot of people in Florida, like you're from Florida, to the special agent, a lot of people in Florida, they carry guns in their home. And he's like, yeah. And she's like, do you have a gun? Objection. And it was overruled. And so he's like, yes, I have a gun. And that's how she ended it. And then we heard from Dr. Dawn Hughes. Now, Dr. Dawn Hughes is a clinical and forensic psychologist that specializes in trauma therapy. Don't quote me on this. I didn't have a chance to Google it before I did this video. I feel like she testified in a pretty big trial. Maybe it was Depp v. Heard. Was it Harvey Weinstein? I don't remember off the top of my head. I should look that up. But I feel like it's one of those. Maybe not, though. So, you know, they went through her resume, very qualified, 30 years of experience. She does clinical and forensic psychology, and she also treats patients one-on-one. So this was I felt like it was a little awkward because there were so many objections and so many sidebars during her testimony.
Oh, Jay, you left a nice comment for me. Did you mention me? Real nigga.
And I think that this had been a point of contention in pre-trial hearings because, you know, she didn't treat Cassie Ventura or, you know, Jane Doe. And this is just, you know, I'm thinking out loud here because there was just so many objections and sidebars. So anyway, there were 4 topics that she discussed, and it was why victims stay, how they cope, patterns of disclosure, and memory. And then they asked her if she was being paid to be there, and she said, yes, I'm being paid $6,000 per day. They wanted to get ahead of that, it seems. And then she went in to describe why victims don't leave,
Yo, chat.
Power, and
y'all are haters, man. Yo, who's hate watching right now? It's okay. We love you too. Look, I looked at her video from yesterday. I looked in the comments section. Watch this. Look at the hate. 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 Oh, the first thing a nigga said is, wait. Okay. All right, bet. All right, nah. Some real niggas is in the building. Act. All right, cool. Then, wait. Fuck. Someone was just like, wait, it's on my phone. They was like, do not get involved with academics. You will regret it. I was like, what the fuck? That's kind of hate. Where's it at? Oh, y'all going crazy in here. No. Somebody just, I'm like, that's some hating ass shit. I don't know why it don't show up on there. Somebody named Big Gall Baby Hughes. Look at this nigga right here. Oh fuck, I can't. Why is my phone? It's because I have a screen protector on that thing. Don't get involved with academics. It be your own people, man. It be your own chat. It be your own chat. All right.
Troll, coping through placating the abuser. Let me go through. Oh, and I also didn't add that during the testimony of Gerard Gannon, the special agent, Diddy's sons, Justin and Christian, walked in.
Does Armand Wiggins do updates at like in between the breaks, or he just does the stream later?
And Diddy turned around and he nodded at them, but he didn't smile. He just kind of, nodded. And while I'm looking here just to make sure, okay, I got this. I feel like everybody's very tired. I've noticed that Diddy's defense team, they definitely look like they've been putting in some hours at night. Even the jurors look pretty tired. One woman kind of was like closing her eyes a little bit and then would open them back up.
I don't think people are tired, chat. I think people are. Wait, I gotta stop blocking this mute button. I don't think they're tired. I think this is boring. Like, we want the shit. We want the exciting info. And I think partly why I think some of the jurors wanted to even be there, that's what they want. Unfortunately, in a trial, it's not all about salacious shit and, let's describe this part of the freak off, or did he like to do this? No. This is the part where you got to have to start talking to some of the experts. You might need a weapon experts to break this down. Hey, why would someone have a weapon with a defaced serial number? What does that mean? What does this other thing mean? Might need somebody who deals with or whatever with illicit street drugs. What are the effects of having this drug and this drug mixed together? They're gonna have to put these people on the stand to give the jury a really good picture of how Cassie. That's gonna be boring as shit, right? Because we're not gonna hear any new details. It's gonna be almost like education for the court. And the people in the court, especially the jurors, who are going to have to make the decision. So we're going to sit through some boring parts of, okay, so when you start taking a pill that has this amount of whatever, and then you mix ketamine with it, what's usually the reaction? What about an overdose? What about this? Does it put you to sleep? Does it make you euphoric? Does it increase your sexual desires? Does it make you black out? Yeah, these are all things that are probably, no, not even probably, you definitely need an answer for. Because the idea of just saying, just drugs, that doesn't really necessarily paint the whole picture or crystallize it. That if you think that maybe Diddy gave these drugs to maybe put these people in a vulnerable position, that he could supposedly have some type of power or control over them. So we'll see. So it is going to get a little bit boring at times. Obviously, Jane Doe is going to be a very spirited testimony. Whoever that is, we'll probably figure it out. By the way, I wonder how that's going to happen. There's so much press in court. If she's going by Jane Doe, or is she going to testify behind a glass? Like, I just don't know. I feel like people are going to be watching who comes in and out of court. She'll probably not come out from the main entrance, but I'm pretty sure they're going to try to figure out who the hell Jane Doe is. It won't be on the record, but, so the record of the transcript, that person's name will never be said in that trial, whether by defense attorneys or AUSAs. But if that person's sitting there, somebody's going to notice, be like, ain't that 50's baby moms? I'm not saying it's her. Or whoever it is. So that's to come. Also, Kid Cudi's testimony. If they're saying it's going to happen this week, it's going to happen either tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. I'm thinking it's going to happen tomorrow. So Kid Cudi, whatever he says, he's probably going to give us some more details.
And, the government, they look tired, but not quite as tired. I feel like they are, they're a group of really strong women. Let's see. You see what else? Yeah, so it was, like I said, a lot of, she went through psychological abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse, love bombing. She went through like what love bombing is, and then coping strategies, where they brought up how sometimes victims and survivors cope with drugs so they can try to, push everything way down and compartmentalize. And yeah, so when we broke for lunch, she was being cross-examined, and he was alluding, and this lawyer, by the way, I have to look him up. He's a new lawyer for Diddy. I did not know his name, and I rushed out here to do this, so I didn't get his name, but he really seemed to be honing in on the fact that in order to really comment on a patient or a victim, you have to treat them know their story, know all of their details, know what they went through, because people can't be, put in boxes. And Dr. Hughes is like, well, you can categorize them. So there was just some back and forth there. We're expecting a witness this afternoon. I think I am hearing they may plead the fifth. So we'll see.
They already did, and it appears that they have gotten immunity. So they're going to have to take the stand. Let me see real quick. I think we should be back on the tweets. Absolutely, we should absolutely be back on the tweets. We pretty much only have like 2 more hours in court. Here we go. All right, we already got that. Here's a break. The person invoked their Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. And here's the immunity order. They signed it. They're now back. That was 38 minutes ago. It says, Your Honor, we've mailed you the exhibit over the break. Or emailed you, I guess, right? Combs Agnifilo says, we object to it as hearsay. The statement, I feel you from Mr. Combs is ambiguous. He could be saying thanks for the advice. The judge says, we'll pick it up after Dr. Hughes. Please get her back on the stand. The jury's now entering. Then Combs, Jonathan Bach, he says, you're with the American Psychologists Association, right? Which says you should only render an opinion after an examination, right? The answer is where? Dr. Hughes says, this is a different role. So basically she's saying that she's not given a opinion or she's not given a real clinical diagnosis. She's just testifying. Combs Bach says, you have not gathered information about this case though, right? Dr. Hughes says, I'm not rendering an opinion on any individual. Bach says, there's someone named Cassie, but you don't know what she said, right? Dr. Hughes says, I don't. Combs Bach says, you testified across the river in the Eastern District of New York, right? She says, right. So, and you said the same thing, even though those cases are different. Ooh, that's a good one. Shorty's probably just going in there to get her $6,000 and probably just say the same thing because these are going to be sex trafficking cases, and the government wants you to say the same thing. So they're kind of saying, yo, listen, you never talk to the person. You're claiming you don't really look over the cases, and you're saying the same thing in 2 different things. Okay. Dr. Hughes says it's to help the jurors understand. Bach says, well, it's their job to consider the case, right? Bach says, you don't publish data on patients you have evaluated, do you? She says, no, it's confidential. Bach says, so I can't cross-check your experience, the basis of what you're saying, right? Sorry. Bach says, well, people might go to a civil lawyer to make a little money, right? AUSA says objection, so let's move on. And say, in civil litigation, you might look for malingering, right? Then Bach says, you give a webinar about expert witness testimony, right? She says, yes, for battered women. Bach says, let's show you DX, and that's a exhibit. Judge says sidebar. So during the sidebar, exhibit from Star Island, Baby Oil, and Astroglide. This is this. The judge says, jurors, we're going to send you to the jury room for a bit. All rise. So the jurors leave. So now they're going to deal with some shit. Says, yesterday, Ms. Shapiro submitted an exhibit, ex parte. Now reviewing the document, what should I focus on? Okay, so basically, Shapiro submitted a exhibit that they wanted to use, but they wanted to confer with the AUSAs first. And look like they've conferred. Now they want the judge to make a ruling on it. AUSA says it shouldn't show this witness. It shouldn't show this witness has a bias. Interesting. Okay. All right. So it look like they don't want to show something, or the government wants to show it. The defense don't want it to be showed. They're thinking this is gonna make the witness be biased or somehow influence the witness in a way that wouldn't be fair to Diddy. So we're gonna see what that is. Okay. Okay.
Absolutely correct. They wanted to get her in, get her out, and be done. And I don't see how she's going to be brought back.
Is that a problem for the prosecution and defense that they can't recall?
So I think this is about Cassie. So remember, there was a part in the trial about 2 days ago where the judge warned the prosecutor that if they went down a line of questioning, that it would open the defense with the ability to recall Cassie as a witness that they could provide an adequate response and defense to this. Cassie is going to be giving birth shortly, in a few weeks, supposedly, and they can't. So the judge told that to the prosecutor, and the prosecutor agreed, and Cassie will not be called back. So they avoided that line of questioning that could introduce or bring in a recalling of Cassandra Ventura.
This is from Tia215. Aisha, are they bringing Cassie back to the stand, Jesse? No. No, her testimony's done. She's 8.5 months pregnant. They wanted to make sure she finished her entire testimony week 1. The judge was adamant about that.
That is absolutely correct. They wanted to get her in, get her out, and be done, and I don't see how she's going to be brought back.
Is that a problem for the prosecution or defense, that they can't recall her?
I think that they've sufficiently established what they needed to establish with her, and there really is not a reason to recall her unless some witness later on brings something up that she potentially can then rebut that has not yet come in. And they would need to address that then, but I don't see how they get her back.
We have a question regarding the forensic testimony. So as I mentioned, Dr. Dawn Hughes, the psychologist, has took the stand earlier. I believe she's still going to be cross-examined when they come back. By the way, when they come back, we're going to give you real-time updates about what's happening in court, and we will break down the testimony in real time. But as I mentioned, she testified in the Johnny Depp Amber
that Cassie was actually saying about being in love, being in a wonderful relationship, wanting to do the freak offs, etc., that they take away that voluntary element. So
okay. All right. They're dealing with this issue of will this exhibit be given in or allowed to be shown? The jurors are outside the courtroom. They're actually in the jury room right now, and look like they're going to be probably arguing this out for maybe a few minutes. I would imagine that I think they already took 1 or 2 breaks already, including lunch. They might have one more break, but then they should continue all the way till 3. So supposedly the court is being shut down at 3, at least this week. So I think this week they're going to do 3. I think they're going to go back to 4 or maybe 5 next week. And it's supposedly the aim of this is to not have the jurors burn out. Okay. Real quick, and then I guess slightly good. Let's get back to the tweets here, people. They had a sidebar. They should be back now. They were arguing about. Actually, they weren't arguing. They just had a sidebar. Okay. Now they're back. They said, did you discuss the topics with the prosecutors? So this is Bach that's still questioning Dr. Hughes. Hughes says, with all due respect, it's mostly me educating them. Bach says, but you know nothing about the case. Were you advising them on how to present evidence in domestic violence cases? Bach says, well, we don't get an answer. Then Bach says, didn't you help them write briefs? AUSA says, can we have a sidebar? This is another sidebar. I said, yes, but keep it brief, shorter than the last. The sidebar hasn't, in fact, been shorter. And now it says, sorry that it wasn't shorter. Ms. Steiner, now we get to, I guess it's a recross. Is this a recross or no? So you reviewed some filings in court in this case. It was all related to the subject of your expert testimony, right? Correct. AUSA says, in fact, we redacted. Hughes says, yes. Steiner says, you're a board-certified forensic psychologist, right? Hughes says, yes. AUSA says, how many of those are in New York State? Dr. Hughes says, I think about 40. Okay. The recross is happening. Combs Bach says, your defense work is mostly entirely for victims of domestic, right? Hughes says, I'm not sure that's true. Bach says, did you work with Brian Steele, who was defending a woman charged with reacting to domestic violence, right? Okay. Okay. Give me 1 second. Oh, anyway, let's get back to the case. Let's get back to the case, man. But just let you know why tomorrow I'm going to step out for a bit. Okay? All right. So Bach from Combs' team says, Mr. Steele decided not to use you, right? After meeting with you, the judge says, move on. Bach says, no further question. The judge says, next witness. AUSA says, The government calls George Kaplan. Okay, so remember, George Kaplan is the person who was a former assistant of Diddy. He came in today intending to plead the fifth. And this is very important. Him pleading the fifth tells me two things. Number one, the government did not sit with him to accurately prepare him for this testimony. I'm going to tell you why. We've heard other people admit that they do have a proffer. Now, a proffer, like rather than getting a immunity by the judge, or the judge has to sign off on it, you could have a proffer by the prosecutor, which is almost like pretty much like it could be a 5K letter. It could be a safety valve, whatever. It could be these things that basically says the government is not going to prosecute you, right? So that usually ensures that when people get up on a stand, they're not incriminating themselves, and that's why they'll get on a stand and they won't do any type of plea the fifth. This guy waits until he's about to be called, and then he pleads the fifth, and then I guess the government probably, they haven't talked to him that much. They said, oh, we do have a immunity deal for you, and then they said, get your lawyer to read it, then the judge signs off. So it tells me this guy's not that well prepped, which I'm a little bit shocked by because this is interesting. Usually they deal with it in a proffer or something of the sort before. So let's go. He got to testify because he has no more reason to, and the AUSA could be compelled for him to be held in contempt if they guarantee that whatever immunity that they had the judge sign off on, he's clear for, so he can't incriminate himself no matter what. So it says, when did you work for Combs Enterprise? He says from 2013 to 2015. AUSA says, what fell under that holding company? Kaplan says, clothing, liquor, entertainment. I was the executive assistant to the chief operating officer. They said, where did you work? 1710 Broadway. Hold on. Oh. Okay, my bad. 1710 Broadway. So what was your next position? Well, I was the executive assistant to the chairman, Mr. Combs, from September 2014 to 2015. So who did you report to? I reported to Miss Karam. Now, this is going to be such a valid. Remember, we keep talking about Karam? Look what he says. Miss Karam, KK, she essentially ran Combs' life. AUSA says, where did you report? LA. What did you do? I carried his bags, made sure things were where they should be when he wanted them, as he trusted me more than other people he had around. I'd set up hotel rooms. He said, how many hours a week would you work? Kaplan says 80 to 100 hours a week. AUSA says, how did you get paid? He says, well, starting, it was $125,000 a year to start. AUSA says, what did you do in the morning? I made sure everything was in the bathroom. The breakfast was cooked. He was recording a mixtape, so we worked late. He said, who was the security? Uncle Paulie, D-Rock, Ruben. By the way, the other assistant said Uncle Paulie and D-Rock. So D-Rock and Uncle Paulie and KK, we got to see if they ever get into this trial. We're going to have to see something. D-Rock, Uncle Paulie, KK. Okay, by the way, random, as I'm watching my finger wag. You know what Myron Gaines told me? Myron said, you're too rich to be having, I just have a webcam, it's a Logitech webcam. He wants me to get a cam link and use some type of camera that's high def. Chat, do y'all not fuck with this? Y'all don't fuck with my camera? There's another thing. Look. Y'all don't fuck with this? This is just the webcam view. Y'all don't fuck with it? Okay. Should I get another camera or no? Anyway, whatever. Okay, so we know the security. So how frequently did you communicate with Mr. Combs? He said multiple times a day. Things could be found in the back. An iPad, drugs, whatever. So did he ever threaten you? Well, he threatened my job. AUSA says, how often? So maybe monthly. Yo, did he keep a bitch in check and keep his employees on their tippy toes? Nigga, I could fire you. You could clearly tell Diddy was on that type of time. He said maybe monthly. He said he'd only want to be surrounded by the best people, and that he was sorry, that he wasn't. For example, he went at me for 1 liter of water, and he asked me for 1 liter of water. I brought back 2 half liters of water, and he said no. How did you travel? On his jet, or going in advice or in advance to make sure it's all set up? Said, how did you set up the hotel rooms? There was a bag. I unpacked it. Clothes, candle, Astroglide, baby oil. So he's saying that I see why this guy is pled the fifth. He feels that him setting up the freak-off room consistently probably puts him in, the crosshairs of Diddy's attorneys or defense team, really suggesting that he should be a co-conspirator. Okay, there was a bag unpacked, a closed candle, Astroglide, baby oil. So who bought this? He said often it was me. So basically, he bought it just like how Cassie booked the escorts. AUSA says, in what cities do you set up the hotel room? LA, New York, Miami, and LA. We were in Mr. C, Bel Air, the Intercontinental. Okay, so those were the hotels they would stay in. AUSA says in New York, Trump Hotel by Columbus Circle. In Miami, SLS. He said, how often? Wait, Diddy was in the SLS? Oh, shit. Okay. Not the one in Miami. Okay, all right. How's it booked? We booked it on the Frank Black, based on Biggie's Frank White character. AUSA says, would you clean up the rooms? He says, yes. Bottles of baby oil, Gatorade, once brown crystallized powder on the counter of the bathroom sink. He said, why did you clean up? Not the hotel staff. It was implied to protect his public image. I was keen on doing that. Explain. Agnifilo says objection is overruled. Kaplan says, I've found hotels would sell photos to newspapers to shame guests. AUSA says, did he reach out to you from the room? So yeah, for food, clothes, sometimes drugs. I did it, whatever. Okay, so this guy used to get drugs for Diddy. AUSA says, what type of drugs? He says, Dop kit. What's that? AUSA says, illegal drugs? Agnifilo says, I object to the term illegal. Okay? AUSA says, okay, what other drugs? Kaplan says, Advil, ketamine. AUSA says, what did he ask for? Kaplan says, I'll pick up the drugs for him, MDMA. AUSA says, who asked? Kaplan would say, Combs, in LA and in Miami. Kaplan then says, in Miami, Mr. Combs asked me to call a person. He came and gave me a bag of pills, MDMA. I gave him cash. I gave the pills to Mr. Combs. AUSA says, what about LA? He says, I went out and I met the person in Hollywood. I gave the money. He gave me a bag. The judge said, we're going to break here for the day. Okay? There's a little bit more. It says, Agnifilo says, there's a proffer email chain that's about Gina, and Gina is out of the case. She's not coming. AUSA, she says she's in the indictment. Agnifilo says, they could get her here, and they're choosing not to. Ooh, this is going to get interesting. Now, Gina, we got to think that's Virginia or Virginia. I don't know. I think her name was Virginia. Whatever. That's the woman who we've watched her interview a few times. Let's see. On the court. No, wait. The proffered email chain is about Gina, and she's out of the case. She's not coming. They could get her here, but she's choosing not to. But they're choosing not to. Tomorrow is going to be Kid Cudi. Oh, yes. Kid Cudi testifies tomorrow against Diddy. Kid Cudi tests for blowing up his car after Diddy found out he was smashing Cassie. Perfect. Got it. All right. Wow. Okay. Trial. We're done today. Well, we're not done today. We're done with the live tweet updates. We're probably gonna go to Law and Crimes. They should have somebody outside now because people are coming outside. Takes a little bit for everybody to file outside.
Car crash victim in Florida.
Okay. So they're waiting for that to happen. They're waiting. Okay. Let's go to TMZ. So this person is the guy who set up the freak offs. I'm wondering if they're gonna ask him, like, have you ever seen anything that's that crazy? Now apparently we have a picture of his name is what's the guy's name? We just had him. I wonder what's going on with the Gina person. Chat, you know what I think is going on? You know what I think is going on? So there's a proffer that was supposedly made, or there was proffer discussions. The mere fact that Diddy's lawyers know about the proffer discussion, I think that Gina is on Diddy's side. I think the government knows Gina, right? Gina is this woman right here. Gina Diddy interview. The government knows at the end of the day, she gonna still she gonna still be with that nigga. And they're not bringing her up there because she gonna make everything look like it's consensual. She gonna switch up from this and be like, oh no, I wanted to do it, I was just hurt. She's gonna switch all of this shit up. And because Agnifilio, which is Diddy's lawyer, is saying, hey, why don't y'all bring her up? He's raising the question. No defense attorney is going to bring up why doesn't a AUSA use a witness unless they think that witness is going to be on their side. So I think this woman that they're bringing up, they again, let me go back to it. It says wait, there's more. It says let me read that real quick. Wait, there's more. Okay, we got the full tweet thread right here. Bang 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 bang. Got to go to a couple more. All right, here we go. Okay. Look, the proffered email chain is about Gina. And Gina's out of the case. She's not coming. And AUSA says, well, she's in the indictment. It seems like they want her to come. I don't know. So, you see, this type of shit here, this is why we need people coming out of court and speaking. We'll play a little bit of this interview. You know, we've kind of played pieces and pieces as we go along. We do want to get a little bit more on this. Let me see. Law and Crimes are probably going to have the first person out of court.